Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another Historical Humans Reacts. And on today's episode, we're talking about the Klamath River in Oregon, yet again, where tribal nations and local farmers come to a rare agreement regarding the river. And for context, the river we spoke about was very recently allowed to flow freely for the first time in, 100 years?
Um,
Something like that.
yeah, a little over. I believe the first dam was late 19th century, and several more were constructed up through the 30s and 50s. And those dams have, in just the past year or so, been removed, allowing the river to flow freely through the through its traditional course and through the traditional lands of a number of indigenous peoples who have been protesting the existence of the dam for the last century.
Now, part of the reason why the dams existed in the first place were both for hydroelectric, but also for irrigation. They were used as a way to allow farmers to flood or to be able to water their fields and to grow crops in the region. And in doing so, by creating these dams and creating these obstructions, it prevented the Pacific salmon from being able to swim up the river and to deposit their eggs and hatch out new broods of salmon. And it caused an ecological disaster because these salmon swim up the river, they lay their eggs, they die, they feed other animals in the region, and it's a cycle. And a lot of indigenous groups in this region relied very heavily on that salmon and on those fish. So it becomes a huge issue, and this became exceptionally more exacerbated as the region started suffering a lot very heavily from droughts that would take the water and cause there to be shortages, which between trying to maintain the water levels and trying to maintain the crop levels led to a lot of droughts and shutting off of irrigation water to the farmers, which eventually prompted protests and illegal water releases by the farmers, because if they can't have their way, they're going to throw a fit.
Yeah. That, of course, was in 2001, was I believe, when it happened.
Yeah.
And then I believe again in 2021, there was heightened tensions because the water was cut in order to preserve the suckerfish, which is a native fish in the Klamath River.
They cut the
Um,
water to the farmers, not to the tribes.
yeah, they cut the water to the farmers. Um, in 2022, the tribes managed to convince the federal government to start removing the dams.
After a long
And
series of campaigns
yeah,
and lobbying for it.
yeah, and
Dams are stupid.
yeah,
I like you. They're not that historic in my opinion. I mean, like
There's some
just
that
because
are
like
important and historic, but for the most part, a
hot
lot of.
take.
Ooh,
Sorry, hot take. I don't think the Hoover Dam's that cool.
I'm not even talking about the Hoover Dam.
yeah.
No, that's
Although it
just
is
like whatever.
historically important, it's the reason Vegas exists.
Well, it's the reason that the Colorado River also runs dry on a regular basis, but we're not counting that.
We're here for Klamath, right, everybody?
So
which
get rid of the dams and everything.
which was the whole removal of the dams for the Klamath was a huge win and a huge uptick for the salmon to reach their spawning grounds. But this is just the beginning, as they were talking about, because this is a massive agreement between two sides that are traditionally adversarial against each other. So to be able to come to this understanding, which they signed a memorandum of understanding, an MOU, which is a legal document that basically says we are on the same page. Here's how we plan on tackling this issue, and what they're talking about here is water
Yeah,
rights, basically.
yeah, and the long and short of it is that the tribes and the basically the agricultural water user association here are deciding on restoration projects to work on together that they will then petition the federal government for funding for. And the fact that they're both sort of agreeing that there should be enough water for the fish for the tribes and enough water for the farmers to irrigate their crops is in of itself historic. Since the initial treaty in 1864, these two groups have been violently opposed to one another. Uh, it is not helped by the fact that the federal government would regularly just shut off the water supply to one side or the other and leave them to fight to fend for themselves. Here, they are actually working together for what is probably the first time in history in such a meaningful way. And it is hoped that the ecological condition of the watershed will improve, that the fish populations will grow and prosper, and that the farmers won't have to worry as much about running out of water.
Well, and we've seen in other regions around the world that eventually that a lot of projects like this that restore the ecosystem to their natural system, it ends up being a almost converse reaction where you think that by releasing all the water and having dammed it up that it would do a lot of damage. Well, by actually releasing the water, it tends to prevent droughts and allows water to be more regularly cycled through the ecosystem. Like the flooding cycle and the wetlands that are associated with water and with rivers are so vitally important, both for species growth and species sustainability, but just carbon impoundment and all sorts of other goodies that can positively benefit both the farmers and the region. I mean, a lot of times we don't really talk about it, but some of the most fertile farmland is along rivers, and it's because they flood and deposit the all the
Nutrients.
organic materials that fall into the mud at the bottom of the rivers.
Yeah,
That's why the Nile was so important to Egypt throughout its entire history.
yeah,
People relied on it.
So I think there's starting to be a more wider understanding of both climate sciences and ecology to the point where I think both sides can see the benefit of this. To the tribe, it's them allowing to them to exercise their sovereignty, their tribal rights of being able to fish and harvest and utilize this resource that had been pretty much stolen from them just like their land.
yeah, and yeah, and with with this collaboration with the farmers and these new plans going forward, we are here at Historic Humans very excited to see that the Department of the Interior for the U.S. government has
Run by Deb
pre-approved,
Holland.
yeah, has pre-approved 72 million US dollars for ecological restoration and irrigation modernization. So 72 million has been pre-approved for whatever plan these two stakeholders come up with for the future.
Well,
Hell yeah.
I think that's a great point for us to leave off here on a positive note. Money's being sent to the right direction, and we are seeing a positive impact on our environment. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed, let us know down below, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.